Welcome. And if this isn't your first video, welcome back. My name is Richard, and I'm the collections manager at the Manitoba Indigenous Cultural Education Center. And this is a video that's part of our ongoing Conservation Cafe project, where I invite Amanda over and we speak to different materials in the collection and how you might be able to work with these items and materials in your own community or in your house and look after them and take care of them. So I'll pass it to you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amanda McLeod. I'm a member of Sagang Anishinaabe Nation, and my background is in conservation and curating. So I did train officially in conservation in an institution in Europe. But my practice is actually kind of based in trying to find a balance between the institutional training that I got and the way to respectfully care for belongings in our own community. And to actually also figure out ways, which is what we're doing for this video, to care for objects that you could have in your home and your community, but using materials that you would have on hand or that you can get pretty easily.
Perfect.
So for this one, we're actually talking about birch bark. So we have this beautiful birch bark box here, which is in fantastic shape. So this one, you have the birch bark, you've got a little bit of hide as the handle here. You've got sinew used for the threading that sewed it up. You would have adhesive, you can see along the top that this has been glued down. And then there's some dyed quill work. So it's a bunch of different materials. What we would call a composite object. So it's not just birch bark that you're talking about caring for here. In conservation, if you're talking about museums, a lot of the times they'll say don't introduce any water, don't introduce any liquids to something like this. But when you talk about historically how we cared for birch bark, we would soak things, we would sink them. We were talking about before we were filming how birch bark canoes, the way that they were refreshed every year is they basically, in the fall, just before everything would freeze, is they would line birch bark canoes with clay. They would fill them with stones and then they would sink them for the winter. So they would be down at the bottom of the lake and the lake would freeze over, and then they would retrieve them in the spring and they would be completely, almost like new, they would say. Nice. This is a little bit more difficult because you do have a couple more, again, we've got the hide and we've got the dyed quill work, so you don't really want to put this in the bath. But introducing, using water to clean, if there's any dirt buildup or anything, you could use a soft cloth or you could use cotton swabs like Q-tips in water. I do like to say distilled water is the best. Tap water does have minerals and some chemicals in it. So distilled water is something you can actually get in most grocery stores, so it's fantastic for cleaning. You just want to make sure that you kind of you don't want to wet any dirt and then just leave it because it will just kind of spread. So you just want to make sure that you carefully wipe away the dirt that you've wetted on the surface or something like that. But the funny thing with birch bark is handling it actually keeps it in better shape. So you can talk about birch bark getting too brittle if it's not humid enough. If it's too low humidity, birch bark can start drying out. And breaking apart and stuff like that. And so then you can introduce conditioning oils if you want. You can actually get birch bark conditioning oils. Really? You can get tins of them. You can do stuff like beeswax mixed with walnut oil, because walnut oil is a natural oil. So you could use that for conditioning the surface of birch bark. But if you do actually handle it, the oils in your skin, in your hands, is actually something that keeps, that actually helps birch bark in staying a bit more supple. The use of water can actually be also used on the quill work. You just want to be a little careful with it because you don't want to tear away the quill work. If you have quill work that's starting to delaminate, or I guess starting to lift and break away, or you have bits that are missing, it'd be best to kind of tack them down to make sure, because they will continue to kind of pull away. So you want to make sure that you don't have more kind of catching on things or pulling away on things. So if you just kind of tack it down.
And how would you tack it down?
You could use threading materials is probably the best way, because then there isn't really any chemicals that you're introducing. Glues will kind of fail over time. So
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily use glues for something like that. I guess in terms of storage, obviously you don't want it to be in a too dry of environment. But for something like this, when you're talking about a composite material, you don't want it to be too high humidity, or else you're going to have something like the hide ties and handle start rotting away. So you want to keep it in a place that doesn't fluctuate too much in terms of temperature and humidity. It doesn't go too high, it doesn't go too low, too fast. That's a big thing, is like how fast the temperature changes is a huge thing that can affect something like this. Yeah, so we've talked about it before, where it's like, if it's comfortable for you in terms of the environment, then it's comfortable for something like this.
If you haven't heard us talk about that, go watch another video.
We keep talking about it quite a bit. If you're starting to notice anything with the box happening, a good rule of thumb is just to kind of move it from where it is, or try to figure out what the environmental conditions where it is that could be affecting something like this. And this is something that can be re-sewn as necessary. Museums don't like to introduce new materials into, say, historic objects type thing, but within the community, totally fine. I don't see why we wouldn't do the repairs as necessary.
Yeah. 2 questions. When you had mentioned using water, you had said to wet things. Are we talking damp Q-tips and cloths, or are we actually talking like you can get things like you're comfortable using wet cloths?
With the wet cloths, like I'm quite happy using it in terms of like little bits.
Okay.
Because again, that's a little bit of my training that's hard to break, is just to do little bits at a time.
Yep.
But again, it's something that you just don't want to keep absolutely soaked, because then it's harder to control where the dirt is going.
Okay.
So when you're doing like little spots, that's where you can kind of control getting the dirt out instead of just spreading it around to other places.
Okay. And then in terms of like looking at the item, are there signs or things that you can sort of notice that might lead you to suspect something's going wrong with the material?
Looking for insect infestation, because insects, again, love birch
Natural
bark,
material, yeah.
and they will have a fun time boring through something like this, and just kind of compromising the whole structure of the box. So just look out for droppings.
Okay.
Look out for like black dots. Yeah, just to make sure because infestations and something like this can happen really fast, and they can eat away a lot of it really, really, really quickly.
Okay.
Like for example, I saw a box that had a whole section just like eaten away, so the thing started crumpling in on itself. So at that point, it's very hard to repair something like that. Okay. So if you can kind of mitigate it in advance instead of having to try to fix it after the fact, that's even better.
All right. And light considerations?
Light.
Not too bad.
When you're talking about light fastness, it doesn't really affect the box that much. Okay. It's more when you're talking about how light direct sunlight, for example, can affect just temperature.
Okay.
And it has that direct sunlight can affect temperature fluctuating really, really fast. So for example, if you're thinking about you're inside and it's sunny inside your living room, it can get quite warm really quickly, but then as soon as the sun's away, the temperature drops pretty quickly, and that's too fast of a fluctuation. Yeah,
because I asked because I know certain 3D objects that we have at the center, you'll want to rotate them, especially if they're right in a window, because just one side gets so much sun versus the other. But if you're not concerned about that kind of light damage on this type of material, then that's not the same kind of consideration.
Yeah, it can just cause like brittling of it.
Right. Yeah, on the one side, yeah.
Of more temperature and stuff like that. But you do want to take into consideration, again, the quill work and the dyes in the quill work. Stuff like that can be light fast, especially something like purple.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
purple. Purple on it. So that one, if it's in direct sunlight, will go away really quickly.
Yeah, that'll be the first to fade. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think this one
is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's one of the more straightforward ones that we have, even though it's still a composite item. And as always, we have a checklist that I will host on the MICC website at micc.com. You'll be able to find it in one of the menu items up on the top, or wherever it is. Maybe we have a website refresh. And I should also add the URL into the description if you're looking at this, if you're watching this online, so to help you find it, and it'll just give you it'll sort of go over a lot of what we talked about and just give you something to sort of reference as you're working through this, just to make sure that you can stay on top of what to avoid, what to do, and guide you a little bit. Yeah, great. Well, we've still got a few more to go, so hopefully we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks.
Thanks.